Hey everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode. Of course it's a brand new episode. Well, it's not new anymore. It's new now. Now it's old. That's old. This is new. Anyway, great episode. It's me, MycoRising. Of course, this is Mikeadelic, and I'm joined by Seth Warner from the San Francisco Psychedelic Society. We're talking microdosing. Everything that you ever wanted to know, but we're too... What is that book called? Everything you wanted to know, but were too afraid to ask. But we're talking about the microdosing movement, and of course, people aren't afraid of microdosing. They're inquisitive about it. They're curious. They want to know what's going on. How can this help me? What do I have to know about this? And we really cover all the grounds. Now, I think Seth and I probably could have had more of like an inside baseball kind of chat, but we opened it up and got into what is microdosing. What is a microdose? What kind of protocols are there? And all of the good questions. So everything you want to know about microdosing. And if you don't find it in this podcast, you are going to find it in the microdosing movement. It's the microdosing movement. It's a 6-week course featuring James Fadiman, the godfather of microdosing. He literally wrote the book on it, The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. It's like the Bible for any psychonaut. So they've hooked up, they've teamed up with James Fadiman. They have weekly live classes, community socials, microdosing journals, supplemental videos. It's a 6-week course, like I said. And all the links that you will need to find that will be in the show description. They're also in my link tree on social media. If you're interested, use my links. I get a little credit for that, for hooking you guys up with that. They also operate on a sliding scale, which is really cool. So for people who, maybe can't necessarily afford it, but really want to participate, a limited amount of scholarship tickets will be available for individuals who can't afford a ticket. So there's a form that you could fill out there. And yeah, it's really amazing. We really cover a lot of ground in this episode. Seth is so knowledgeable as a mycologist and cultivator, and been him and I going through our own microdosing experiments. We had a good chat here. So the San Francisco Psychedelic Society, the microdosing movement, check that out. The links are in the show description, show notes, and in the link tree on my social media. Go there, check it out. And I will be participating in that as well. I think it's a really, really cool thing that they put together. I really like the San Francisco Psychedelic Society and all the things that they're putting together. So check them out, check out what they're doing, and check out that link. And if you're interested in microdosing, I highly recommend this. It's good to do something like this in community together, and especially with James Fadiman, who is just the father of modern microdosing. It's just it's amazing. There's also going to be a few people from the Microdosing Institute and from and Adam Bramlage of Flow State Micro. So they're tapping into over 30 years of combined microdosing experience to empower everyone who attends this with the best information available in this 6-week course, the microdosing movement. So really excited for this. Really, really cool. And you guys are going to love this podcast. It's a great one. I love talking with Seth. He's a kindred spirit. All right. Well, let's do a little promotional activity so that I can survive and thrive in this crony capitalist corporate commodified environment. SHEATH Underwear. I love SHEATH Underwear. I wear SHEATH Underwear. It's really, really comfortable. You can get 20% off if you put the code MycoRising in at checkout. And, they have the pouches that separate your man parts down there to keep everything dry and comfortable. No itching, chafing. Super, super comfortable material. They just launched the Flower of Life SHEATH Underwear. It's so cool, so amazing. I think maybe even more comfortable. I really, really enjoy this pair so much, and the design, it's really awesome. And SHEATH Underwear is, they're a company with a similar set of core values and vision, and I just really love what they're building and what they're doing and what they're creating, and their products are great, and they support me. And if you guys feel that it's something that you're interested in, hey, it can make a good gift. You never know. Get someone a pair, and you could probably fit about 100 microdose capsules in that SHEATH pouch. Just saying. Not endorsed by SHEATH, but I'm just saying. those pouches. You don't just have to put your schlong-a-ding-dong and your nut bag in there. You can fit all kinds of things down there, if you know what I'm saying. But it's amazing. It's moisture wicking fabric. Really, really super, super comfortable. Just really great design. Amazing stuff. So go to sheathunderwear.com. I wear them. My girlfriend wears them. My friends wear them. Everybody really loves them. I've heard nothing negative about them at all. You can wear it with the pouch, without the pouch. Doesn't matter. They're still really, really comfortable. Really pleasant experience. And great for workouts, hikes, just casually as well. SHEATHunderwear.com. Put in the promo code MycoRising at checkout. And then the other sponsor is the San Francisco Psychedelic Society. I'm psyched about what they're doing in this microdosing movement. So go and check out what they're doing. The links are in the show description. Check it out and get involved in the microdosing movement. It's going to be awesome. Thanks to everybody who has become a Patreon member. I'm really focused for unleashing some real super awesome stuff for 2021 with Patreon. I really want to build community on there. The more people that we have participating and being engaged with the content and the bonus content and the Zoom calls and the book club stuff that I want to build, it only works with participation. So would love to have you guys there. Check it out. It's patreon.com/MikeBrank. And then big shout out, much love to everybody who leaves 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. Takes 2 seconds. If you love the show, it helps immensely. People that I want to book for the show, say I want to get Paul Stamets on the show, or even Jim Fodiman, they'll look to Apple Podcasts and be like, hey, is this a show worthy of me giving my time to? The more ratings and reviews, the more likely that we get guests like that. Also, just the more likely that people are able to see what we're talking about in the algorithm on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else. The more ratings and reviews, the better it is. So you know what to do if you love things. I hope, I want to create something here that inspires people to take action. You don't want some guy on a microphone telling you what to do. So, if you love it, share it, tell people about it, leave those ratings and reviews, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's great. We love building community. We have people from all around the world. We have a private Discord chat called the Inner Sanctum, and a lot of really cool stuff. Mushroom cultivation classes coming soon via Denver Mushroom, the Denver Mushroom Cooperative. So a lot of really cool things that are happening. And that's pretty much it. With that being said, let's jump into this podcast with Seth Warner from the San Francisco Psychedelic Society.
Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open to us the possibility that everything we know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity.
Well, I'm here with Seth Warner from the San Francisco Psychedelic Society. We're going to be talking about microdosing and what that is and all about, and the microdosing movement that the San Francisco Psychedelic Society is offering. And a fun thing to do is say San Francisco Psychedelic Society 10 times fast, or if you want to play around with it, say San Francisco Psychedelic Society selling psilocybin by the seashore with Sally, and that is also fun for me. I don't know if it's fun for you, but Seth, thanks for being here with me and, riffing about microdosing.
Yeah, man, I'm really glad to be here. Hey, thanks for that nursery rhyme. Let's see if we can get a children's book out there sometime. Man, yeah, it's just a great opportunity to talk to you. It's been really fun just making this interview happen. So thanks a lot. And yeah, SFPS, it's so much easier. SFPS. SPS. So
There we
San
go.
Francisco Psychedelic Society. we got that one going pretty quick. It's funny. It's kind of a hard word to spell, psychedelic, but you get used to it pretty quick when you have to write it on like every single thing you do. And I'm sure you can relate to that.
Mm-hmm,
But,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. The microdosing course that we got coming up, we're calling it the Microdosing Movement because it's just kind of like a more fitting name. It wasn't that long ago that I was a bit of a critic of microdosing, and I was just trying it myself. But I was more of a critic of the PR and like the hype that I heard about microdosing. Hey, like this is just going to make you more productive, better at work. I was kind of looking at it with the standard lens of like, hey, more magic pill terminology. I see that word out there a lot. And I think we don't want to be kind of, training the psychedelic, community at large to like look at this as just another kind of same capitalist opportunity to, and not that, I'm not 100% against capitalism or whatever, it's just like in capitalism, there's the ongoing deception that whatever it is that you think is wrong with you, or whatever they could get you to think that's wrong with you, or whatever you think could be better about yourself is just one convenient purchase away.
Right.
Yeah. So with this movement, we're just kind of calling it the microdosing movement as a recognition of what we see happening. This kind of like silent revolution of people taking care of themselves, practicing self-care in a radical way.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I sort of was like, I guess, triggered by a lot of the aesthetics and a lot of the characters and players in the microdosing space when it first kind of came online more into the mainstream. And I was really attracted to actually David Nichols' presentation of the commodification of the sacred. That really resonated with me. And, again, I'm not against capitalism. I'm not against free market exchange, giving this currency that we've created to represent energy, time exchange, and that sort of thing. I mean, that's kind of seems okay, but there was something about it, and I think you hit it with that magic pill thing, right? It's like we don't want psychedelics to just become some kind of, or at least from my perspective, I was thinking, well, we don't want psychedelics to become some kind of thing that just helps you become a better worker or a more efficient worker, and not necessarily changing or giving you insight into some of the areas of where you could become a more conscious, empathetic, and compassionate being to offer more creativity and more solutions to some of the problems that we face. So I looked at it in a similar lens where it's just like, okay, well, we're just kind of going like this medication route rather than this medicine route with this thing. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just bringing up something in me or whatever. But I've microdosed. I've benefited from microdosing.
Yeah, same, man. I really have too. And I've definitely even taken it to some extremes, probably microdosed like too much at certain points, maybe even became a little dependent on it, to be honest with you.
Ooh, interesting.
I can talk about that. But, what was really, what really stands out to me is like that it's more about the model that we're approaching it with. And if there's magic in it, there's magic in the opportunity to cultivate mushrooms and create your own medicine and, however you want to take the path. I think it's really about what else you're doing. It's not just depending. You don't want to become dependent on it. I just use that word, but you don't want to depend on microdoses to become a better person, right? You want to help them. You want them to help you make the decisions, see the world in a different way so that you can be your own healer, so that you can really show up for yourself. And I think, I've never taken many pharmaceuticals or anything. I did take something to lower my blood pressure when I was a kid. I had like a lot of twitches, and it actually really helped me, but it was such a low dose. The doctors are basically like, yeah, this probably shouldn't do anything actually, but it helped. And I think that there's a belief in there, placebo, the feeling that I could talk to people about my problem. I was like having a lot of like twitches, like shaking, kind of like tics. And talking to my parents, about it, talking to these like official doctors about it. I think all of those aspects probably helped me more as the pill became like a symbol of connection, symbolizing kind of like support. And I think that the more that we can move towards a model with anything that we're doing in that direction, it's really good. And I'm not saying that, oh, look, psilocybin is a placebo, because, anybody that's used it knows it's absolutely not. But it's really about what is the network of support that comes with it. And that's one thing we're really trying to focus on with the microdosing movement is, it's 6 classes once every week on a Sunday. But in between, we have an opportunity for people to hang out. We have like a social every Tuesday. And then additionally, there's like a Discord server. We're going to be having ongoing chats and opportunities to connect with other people in the real world there. And so what we want to do at large as the Psychedelic Society is just really help those organic connections be woven, and to really help these, not that you have to do healing work, but I think that a lot of people that are showing up want to be a part of this collective and individual, global, these different layers of healing that we're all, or many of us are feeling a call to act upon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, healing can be represented in many different kinds of dimensions for all of us. And one of the things that I love about microdosing is that it like similar to what you said, it sort of unlocks a little bit of this greater capacity for connection within you. So it's, sort of symbolic in a way of the medicine, of the mycelial network, just being like, hey, like you're going to ingest this, but we're also like reaching out within you and outside of you to bring in more of a community and more of a dialogue and more sharing and journaling and talking about these the experiences that we're having. And so I'd love to start off with a little bit about some, in my experience, when talking to people who are kind of with it, we're in the community that we're in, it seems that most people kind of know what's going on with this. And then there's sort of like common misconceptions outside. So I want to give a little bit of information to some people who might not know exactly what a microdose actually is, because I have had situations where people have asked for microdoses and been like, oh, I was hoping it was going to be more. And well, according to the Psychedelic Bible here, the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide by Jim Fadiman, it's a sub-perceptual dose. So maybe you could go in a little bit to what is microdosing and what is the right dose and what are we supposed to feel when we take this?
I think it's a really great question. And, I'm trying really to be a person that doesn't have answers.
All right. Well, that's the show, folks.
That's the show, absolutely. Well, what I mean is like, the dose changes is dependent on everybody. I think like a really important awareness that's coming into the space around microdosing right now is just finding your sweet spot. And like that might change depending on environmental conditions. Might change, just based on who you are, your personal chemistry and makeup, perhaps other things that you do. There's a pretty broad, it's generally under 0.2 grams. It could be as low as 0.05 grams of mushrooms. And this is different with different substances. So, the ballpark for LSD or I think it's like some other synthetics that are similar to LSD that are not as illegal. It's like 5 micrograms to maybe 10 generally. But again, these are just kind of like baselines. The best thing to tell people is just to start low and go slow. And that is just basically to say, look, nobody is here to tell you what your right dose is or like what you're supposed to be feeling. Generally, you're not supposed to feel like you're tripping. That's right. That's like what makes it a micro dose. It's like sub-perceptual is the word.
Right. And so if I'm, so just to play like sort of, devil's advocate here or like ask questions that maybe people might have. So Seth, if I'm not supposed to be tripping, then why the hell am I taking this?
That's a really great question. And And I'll just tell you from the many people that I've spoken to about it, from personal experiences, it's not that you don't feel it, it's that you don't really feel it. It
Right.
doesn't hit you. But a lot of people notice. Eilert Waldman, this woman, she wrote, she wrote a whole book, but I think just the title does it justice enough in some cases. And the book is called A Really Good Day.
Mm.
And that's generally the experience people are having, is like, I shouldn't say generally, but a lot of people, enough that it's a phenomenon, enough people are having experience with microdosing that they just feel better about their life. For some reason, they just start making better choices about their health. And that kind of creates this feedback loop where there's an improvement in their life in a real way. And they don't become reliant on the microdose to feel that way. It's like, okay, I'm feeling better today and I'm running. I also just crave it, or I want to. And that's probably just the most interesting thing, is like, all these different, maybe it's a diet you want to be on, eat a certain way, running, drink less alcohol, eat less sugar, etc. For some reason, just a lot of people that use microdosing, they're having an experience where they just want to make those healthy choices. They're not forced to. It just feels better when they do it. And I think that that's just one of the most interesting things. I'm not saying that's for everybody, definitely not. But it's frequent enough that it's like a real fascination of mine.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel that when I microdose, that my attitude, my feeling, the day that I'm embarking on is just a little bit brighter, a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Things are a little bit shinier. I feel a little bit more positive, a little bit more motivated, and it's such a huge help. Now, there's also, I remember being at a microdosing conference in Brooklyn some years ago with Hamilton Morris, Duncan Trussell, Sophia Korb, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll be helping with our course, and James Fadiman too.
Great. Yeah. And they mentioned, I think they were talking about LSD when they were talking about this. Not quite sure. It might have been microdosing in general, but they talked a little bit about some potential downsides, some potential, maybe what I recall from that was that in some cases that maybe it could heighten some things that are already there for you. So if you're kind of prone to anxiety, maybe the microdose could heighten that in certain occasions.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen and what have you heard about some potential side effects that might not be as pleasant?
I think that this is probably one of the most important conversations to have, because any time that everybody wants to say this is a perfect thing, well, you just know it's kind of like a hype. You
Right.
kind of want, like, I have a natural inclination to just want to challenge that, to just like throw it back in its face. So don't worry, I've been trying my best to do that. So I've had this really cool opportunity through putting this course together, putting this, the microdosing movement together, to work with, James Fadiman, somebody, Adam Bramlage, who works really closely with James, as well as the Microdosing Institute from the Netherlands. And yeah, James, that's from the data that him and Sophia had been collecting since creating the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. And you're right. I mean, it seems like anxiety is the main thing that they have been cautioning against. So people with anxiety, watch out. Don't use microdosing or don't rely on it for that kind of better day, because psychedelics at large are a non-specific amplifier. I think that that's one of the best definitions I've heard personally. Mm-hmm. It feels really true, because people are always asking, like, being a mushroom person, they're always like, oh, are there different strains that have different effects? And I'm like, well, different days have different effects, probably a lot more than the strains and stuff. Because it's really just like where you are that day, where you're coming from, where you're at. So that's definitely possible. Now, I think a good question is, like, is it necessarily a problem that things are coming up, challenges are coming up? I think it's pretty clear that just non-specific anxiety isn't really a helpful experience. But if there's the potential that it helps you kind of face it and work through a challenging thing, I think that's positive. but also more recently, the work in, I think the Netherlands, they're doing it. And Adam, he's been working with a number of different athletes. It hasn't been always true that people with anxiety are, having a worse experience because they're microdosing. So it kind of comes back again to this really individual experience that people are having with it. And there's so little data on this that there's excuse me, there's just so little data. And these people have like a lot of data comparatively to most, but there's not that much science that has gone on. It's mostly citizen science and trying to figure out, why is it better or worse for certain people is really a challenge that, the community is taking on at large, but there's no clear answer.
Yeah. So that's what we hope to accomplish, is to get more data, right? And more information. What's going on right now in that space? I guess that it's a lot of like anecdotal, you get stories and stuff like that, which I find to be extremely helpful. But, we also live in this world where it's like really beneficial to have to speak the language of the establishment, essentially, to say like, hey, look at these are like hard numbers here. So are there things happening? You mentioned the Microdosing Institute. Are there things happening that are helping give more credibility to this movement?
Yeah, there definitely are. And I think, I know Paul Stamets is a part of a project called microdose.me, like microdose me. And I think that there's probably that and some other apps that are out there that are basically making it an effort to collect as much data as they can from people that are microdosing. And I think that's pretty cool, but my concern is that won't be open source data. It's just too valuable, I'm guessing, to offer that back to the community. And I know that with the groups that we're putting together, we're looking at the microdosing movement, what we're doing with this series of classes and connections is to really like launch something. So we're going to have an ongoing support group. Recently, our organization switched all of our integration circles and support groups to being totally donation-based, so super accessible, and we'll have one just for microdosing coming up. But we really want to create a community-wide database that allows, and these people have data already, Microdosing Institute, James Fadiman. And we're not sure what the future will hold exactly, but we would like to share data amongst all of us from people that really want to be a part of creating an open source citizen science database, so that as a community, we can really look at the legitimacy, but more importantly, I think that that's proven to a lot of people. So more importantly, further concerns that we might want to take. There's actually very few cases of people having bad outcomes. Really, it seems like really like very odd or strange cases where there have been, but those kind of get locked into like a certain lore. And I know there's a Chacruna article that came out warning about the enlargement of like heart valve due to the use of microdosing with, I think LSD was what they were talking about primarily in the article. And it's hard exactly to say it. I don't think that article is based on evidence. It's based on like kind of looking at similar things and how it might impact. But there's definitely a reason to think like, hey, we don't know everything right now. There's no, but at the same time, there's so few, we're coming off of anecdotal evidence. There's actually so very few bad experiences that people have had that to think that we shouldn't say a word about microdosing, or that we shouldn't try to help people do it in a safer way, in a better way, because there's the potential for people to have a bad experience. That doesn't make sense to me. And I know it's not like you're saying that, but so we're just really trying to make sure that the people that are showing up are having that better experience. But I want to be honest and transparent that there are unknowns. This isn't, thousands of years old in our context or in our culture where we know how it's going to impact people. But it actually seems like, there have been indigenous practices of just using small doses on a regular basis as well. Particularly with like like Wachuma shaman, things like that, where they'll just have a microdose tea of a cactus like every day, things like that. And I know that speaking with Elizabeth Bast, she did a supplemental video for the course that people, there's people in the Iboga tradition in Gabon, I think in the Bwiti tribe, people will just, that are the spiritual leaders, they'll use small doses of ibogaine or iboga daily. So there are some, there are some examples of this happening outside of the purely Western context.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's good. I've heard that as well. And it's amazing. I mean, you look at these things as medicines, which they are. It's like, well, yeah, it makes sense. You take a little medicine when you need it. And maybe you take a little, maybe sometimes you take more because you need more. And, people like us and other people who would maybe consider themselves psychonauts or in the psychedelic space more, are I think more willing to, dive in with the unknowns, because it's impossible to know everything right away. And what I've seen also is a lot of people who are coming to this space out of desperation, being like, look, I was on the pharmaceuticals, I was on this, I was on that, I tried this, I tried talk therapy, I tried, CBT or whatever. I've done all these things and nothing's really seemed to work. And I've been hearing these reports of microdosing and Forbes and Michael Pollan and Paul Stamets and, so I've tried everything and I'm just willing to dive in. So you have that tier of people. And then you have the sort of people that are just not going to move until they have concrete, scientific, double blind, experimented, hard research, stats and facts. And then they'll say, well, okay, this seems safe. So I'm wondering, like, what you're seeing on your end, people coming into the microdosing movement, people coming into this space, what kind of questions are they asking? Where are they coming from? What are they concerned about? What do they want to get out of this microdosing movement?
I think the biggest thing that people really are coming for is just like, a lot of people get the basic idea, take small doses, but they just really, what we see is that people really want, how to say it like the most like politely, but I'll say it as rude as possible. People just want like somebody to walk with them, to hold their hand kind of, and be like, move into this space with confidence. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. It's not rude at all. And it's a service that we're like super stoked to help provide people, so we're talking about all the details, how to put together a microdose, how to, obviously we can't help anybody source materials. Ideally, people are living in that decriminalized place or waiting to be in a place, where they can approach this with legality at their back. But at the end of the day, this is a harm reduction. We really want people to like not do it wrong and take huge doses and then be like, microdosing ruined my life, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, people are really coming, I think, and I think it is really important that people approach with confidence, and beyond confidence, like the opportunity to do it right the first time. Really want people that are like planning to have this experience to have a good experience as much as we can. So that's why we're really emphasizing the community aspect. We have like the lessons that cover really all the basics and much more. Q&A with the father of modern microdosing, James Fadiman, really bringing him in. And we've spent a lot of time making a journal so that people can document, the experience they're having on a daily basis, as well as their overall experience, like a reflection at the beginning where they're coming from, a reflection at the end, how they might have changed through the experience. And that includes like opportunities to, just fill in a few bubbles every day, do like a 2-minute kind of impressions, like a quick jot, a little 5-minute free write, and then like some prompts that follow like a kind of a system that we put together, so that they can really look at the various aspects of their life. So if people want to take it all the way to like full life review, that opportunity is there. If people want to show up and learn a couple things, that opportunity is there. If people hope to just make some new friends that are trying to do the same thing, that opportunity is there. We don't really expect anybody to make use of like every single thing that we're offering, but we're hoping that everybody that shows up will get something that they needed. And, part of our mission is to make these things accessible. So scholarships are very available, and it's $60 at a starting rate with a sliding scale that goes up to around $200. So people can kind of like pay what they want.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I really, I love what you just talked about and what you're, putting together with this, because, we hear, in my experience, I feel like, I talk to so many people and I hear community and integration and community and connection. And this seems to be that really like manifested into an actual, actionable, you know, I know you don't want to call it course, but like
Yeah, it's fine. It's the best word.
yeah, the movement, because it really can help. I just think about how, I guess, maybe resistant I was in the past to certain things, and just being like, well, I get it, I'll just do it my own. But over the last couple of years, I've really started to lean into, this this real true, connection with community. So being there with other people and hearing what they're going through and hearing their experiences, asking experts, and having that space to really, almost like a scientist, right? You're
Yeah.
experimenting on yourself, and you're there to like compare and share notes with other people, and that can be hugely beneficial. I mean, it really mimics what psilocybin does in the brain, which is like quieting that default mode network, and allowing for different areas to communicate with each other, and that sort of thing. And so here you're sort of like mimicking that and manifesting that with this group and with this movement. What do you think about what I just said? Does that sound fair?
That sounds cool, man. I like the way
Okay.
you said that. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to take the credit to be like, yeah, I'm just like psilocybin. Our course is like psilocybin. That's pretty bold, because, I really hold and revere that substance and what it can help people with. So, on one hand, a huge compliment. Thanks, Mike. That's really nice of you to say. And also, yeah, I mean, our community, I think we even call it our community. That's just like enough said right there. Like, this community, really, on one hand, I could be saying, well, the psychedelic audience, or like this market sector, but no, we're like talking about these people, because I'm nobody, man. Like, before I started doing this, it's like an activist, basically trying to work for the world, trying to have nature as my boss, trying to figure out how to, engage with healing. I was looking at a lot at permaculture, farming, traveling a lot, going to different farms, and just trying to learn as much as I could. And I started teaching about mushroom cultivation and, gourmet and medicinal, not even psychedelic. Didn't want to be that guy at first. But man, like hundreds of people like asked me to be that guy. And it finally like really just woke up to it. Like, look, this is what people are asking for. Like, I don't think it's because it's wrong. It's like the right thing to do. This is what people are needing. Like, they've had amazing experiences, whether micro or large doses of psilocybin. And, obviously there's other substances. I'm speaking from the perspective of like a mushroom person, but yeah, it really got me thinking about psychedelics. Started teaching a couple small classes, and then that led to the introduction to the Psychedelic Society at its first meeting, its reformation meeting, and I've just been there ever since, trying to like really help the community engage with this leverage point for personal growth, and so that I think together we can develop healing communities that ultimately serve a much larger role. Because, I don't think that this is where it ends. Like, I don't think somebody starts microdosing and then they're like, thank God I'm better now. It's like, no, like, you can microdose or you can use psychedelics and you can go back to whatever you were doing and be better at it. Or you can ask yourself, is this the right place for me?
Yeah.
Or you can see, like, what is my highest, like, you can ask hard questions, like, what is my highest, offering? What am I doing with this life experience that's so brief and, just weird? It's just freaking weird.
Yeah. Let's circle back to what we were talking about before.
Sure.
A little bit in like the, with microdosing to be like a more productive worker, or whatever these like things that I had thought and maybe you had considered too in the beginning. And it's like, the one of the thoughts that came to my mind was that, that through microdosing, you're, wherever you're working, whatever you're doing, I believe that it can help you to, just open up and see things in maybe a different kind of way, or start to do things a different way. So it's not necessarily like you're getting stuck in this, capitalist model of like, well, I just take a microdose, I feel better, and I just go to my job, and I feel better doing my job, and like that's it. But the question that I'm like floating around, or that I'm trying to like find here, is that it could potentially help come up with new and creative solutions that we couldn't see before, we couldn't think of before, to make more healthy inroads into sort of a more psychedelically infused type of worldview or perspective, or just a healthier one, a more natural one, more balanced one. So yeah, I don't know if there's like a question in there, but I guess what I'm saying is that we don't know exactly what the outcomes could be for people who are taking these things to help them along their path. It could potentially be that there's organizations that have people microdosing, and that's okay, and that they're coming up with new and creative solutions to get us back to a more balanced and healthier way of living with the natural environment.
Yeah. I think that that's possible. I don't know how. Like, I don't know. I can't say what it's going to look like, but I'm just here to kind of, I don't know, maybe it's bold, but I really like the consideration of being like a doula, like helping to birth something. And, I think psychedelic societies at large are kind of offering their services as doulas for a birthing movement. And
I love that.
It's obvious that this is not the beginning of the movement. If anything, we're at the end of a very strange movement of prohibition. Of course, it's been like around for a long time, prohibition, but not as long as you'd think, right? It's like more like, that's the weird thing, is prohibition. It's more been, it would seem, that access to different altered states are pretty constant throughout time in civilizations. So for us to have this really limited accessibility for a kind of a long time, in America at least, but I think really Western culture at large, that's strange. And it's so interesting that that's ending right now. And I just think that one of the biggest questions we have to ask is like, if this is part of being a human, access to altered states, altering our states of mind, having those different perspectives that help us see the world different, see ourselves in a new way that might inspire that change, that move towards balance, move towards health. What are the pieces of that are missing? If it's like a fractured, kind of fragmented, image that we're recovering, this image of, our access to these states, what aren't we getting? And I really do believe that, well, first of all, I'll say I have a lot of faith in just the ability of these substances to create good outcomes. However, I do think that context and container are a huge part of it as well. And that like, there's no reason to be so confident that, whatever, quote unquote, the man or whatever our fears create could never like use these substances for the worst case scenario versus the best case scenario. I think that this is like a kind of like a David Nichols conversation too. I've listened to the Symposia stuff a little bit, and I can't remember where I came across it, but I think it was around there. But just like, if we can help soldiers with PTSD so that we can send them back to war, like, are we really solving the issues of our times? And those are just good questions. And I don't know if you're familiar. Let me ask, are you familiar with the book Brave New World?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, we have Soma is like Brave New World. The substance that you take when you're just completely overwhelmed and wish you could quit your job. Might as well just get high, forget about all that, and then get back to work, right? Mm-hmm. That's my biggest fear, that I'm a part of, being a doula, helping birth a movement that leads to that. Mm-hmm. Is that, there's like this real shadow, dark side of our culture that can use and abuse anything. I think I like to make fun of punk rock because I really love punk rock music, or really went through a long phase. Where it's just like, wow, how funny is it? How much money are these kids spending at Hot Topic to like look punk rock? You know,
Yeah.
like so ironic. You know, how is this so co-opted and nobody's questioning it?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
not nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of punks that are not down, but it's an example.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm like a former punk myself and like still have that little punk within me. And it's like, yeah, like that is a sort of a concern. It's like, but isn't that like, I don't know, you know, someone brought this up to me. I remember talking to them about it and I'm just like, man, it's just like everything always gets co-opted. It's, you know, sell out and this and that. And, you know, you're buying ripped jeans for $200 and, you know, Kendall Jenner is like handing a police officer a Pepsi before, you know, he beats a bunch of people with a baton and then he drinks a Pepsi and he's like, oh, never mind. I'm cured now because of Pepsi, you know, like whatever it is. But it's just like, I guess it's also a part of my process too, is just kind of accepting the unfolding of the all. And it's like, you know, we're just trying to, and you are just being this doula facilitating this, you know, and we don't know. And, you know, it is going to help a lot of people. And then some people are going to say, hey, take a microdose and you'll be able to crush these Excel spreadsheets for your boss. And like, you know, and it's just like, it's gonna go in all these different ways, but there's always, in my opinion, I feel like there's always going to be a little, you know, there's going to be these little niches that are really like people are really getting the healing that they need and helping themselves. And who's to say, you know, with people and the way that they want to use these things for what kinds of purposes and what kinds of benefits and you know, so I think that it's just like everything, right? There's going to be good, there's going to be bad, there's going to be things that we shouldn't label as good or bad, and it's just going to be what it is. But there's going to be so many wonderful things that come out of it.
Yeah, I just want to speak to that. Like, you know, I was expressing my fear, right? And like my fear isn't to say that this is what's wrong with psychedelics or this is what's right. Like my fear is completely biased based on my life experiences. So yeah, I think actually to move forward in a way where there's opportunity for all these conversations, all these voices. And for that person that has to do Excel spreadsheets every day, like let them have it. Like let them enjoy it a little more, crush it a little harder. I'm not necessarily against it. I just want to make sure that there's room for, you know, a variety of conversations to be had.
Hell yeah. Yeah. And that's like my inner punk is saying, you know, to me, like the things that will come up sometimes when it'll be like, man, fuck this. Like everybody needs big doses. We got to wake up the fucking world, man. Like we got to fucking see the shit that's going on. Like all of our actions and choices have all these impacts. And like, we got to help underprivileged people and we got to change the system. And, you know, the psychedelics can allow you to conceptualize things in different ways. So we need these big doses to reimagine society and blah, 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 blah. You know,
weirdly authoritarian.
Yeah. It's like, all right, dude, like calm down, man. Like we can, there's also room for like, you know, like 10 micrograms and like, you know, just like have a better day. Like what's wrong with that? It's like, yeah, you're right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, I think subtly one of the things that excites my punk rock, I don't know, my punk rock side the most is just like, you know, helping people learn to grow mushrooms. Like if you can grow them, you know, if anybody grows their own mushrooms, like they know, you know, for microdosing, like or even just for any kind of dosing, to grow your own mushrooms for personal use, it's like you like accidentally just grew like a lifetime's worth of mushrooms or something, you know. Not that it's every time, but you know, a lot of people, it's kind of, you know, a prolific thing in a tiny, like a shoebox size space. Somebody could grow enough mushrooms to microdose for a year, you know. It's like, it's kind of ridiculous. And to me, that's kind of like one of these bigger hooks in our culture is pharmaceutical industry and these different kind of mandated ways to get help. So I just think that like having this kind of alternative is pretty radical. And it's just very exciting to me to think that not only are people able to like create that for themselves or their loved ones, but additionally, you know, they're learning a skill that they could go and grow other kinds of mushrooms too. Mushrooms that maybe we don't even know yet. Maybe in the future there'll be genetically modified mushrooms that you can grow and they have like a ton of vitamins in them or some weird stuff. Who knows? And yeah, the future is going to be very interesting and fungal, I believe.
Yeah, the future is fungal. I love that. Maybe that's the name of the episode.
I'll take it.
I love what you just said. I really do. As someone who's recently started cultivating over the past year here in Denver, where it's decriminalized for personal possession, which is amazing. It really has put me more in touch with the process, with the, I guess, maybe like ethos of and the spirit of what it means to grow your own medicine, and that that itself is such a differentiator than just kind of, oh, just give me a pill, just give me a thing. But when you're really going, nose to tail, for lack of a better phrase, like in that process, that you are in fact creating that kind of more beautiful world, to steal Charles Eisenstein's phrase, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, by getting back, this kind of back to the land, more local, grow your own medicine, grow your own food, have more community, have more connection with, have more intention with what you're doing, and more of a connection with what you're doing and the people that are doing it. So it really does, that whole process really does bring us back to the sort of values that we want to live by as the kinds of psychedelic oriented people that we are. Now, you mentioned, you're a mushroom person, and I know that, and people know that, and so what strain are you? No,
Right.
The Seth strain.
A bit of a lion's mane myself. No, that's bold, huh? No.
Yeah. Oh, but that's perfect though, because that's what I wanted to talk about is, other kinds of mushrooms that can help actually add or benefit to the microdosing of psilocybin. For me, I do a lion's mane blend. I feel like lion's mane is really beneficial. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some, lion's mane and some of the other mushrooms that you feel that help with the microdosing experience.
It's kind of a tough one, right? Because you're layering on, an experience that's already subperceptual. You're taking small doses, like even the psilocybin, which is arguably the most, the thing that you can feel the most of any mushroom. Well, maybe not the most. There's some really deadly toxins out there that will mess you up. But with the other mushrooms, you just kind of take, for me, this is my experience with like maybe not the most nuanced relationship where I've been taking and experimenting with like bigger doses of medicinal mushrooms or things, but I've kind of just consistently taken some sort of tincture or powder, typically of like reishi or a mushroom blend that might include maitake, chaga, reishi. There's a wide variety of medicinal mushrooms, and they all have their place. They all seem to have these sugars in them called beta glucans. It's like a part of the cell wall of a mushroom, and they're these like really complex sugar molecules that activate your immune system in a way that is like beneficial. It kind of gets it like on guard, like ready to attack, and not to say that it puts you on edge. It just keeps like your immune system active, and like it kind of gives it's like these large sugar molecules break down, and this is my understanding. It's like really complicated, but they break down in these unpredictable ways in your body, and then they create these different shapes and sizes that your body has to like react to see if they're invaders or whatnot. So it kind of keeps your immune system somewhat active and like ready to fight. That's at least my, I guess, limited understanding of how it works. And additionally, like they just have a lot of other great, things. They have a lot of, what are these things called? They're in green tea and lots of different foods. Antioxidants,
Oh,
so
yeah.
There's like antioxidants, and then just a lot of like other cool benefits, like lowering cholesterol, increasing your libido. Like reishi is great. It really has given. I think I like reishi a lot. It gives me energy. I know also people take it to go to sleep, so that's kind of fascinating. And actually, here, let me say this. This is one of the most interesting things to me that's come up lately. Let me like tie that up and just say, it seems like medicinal mushrooms are really good for your immune system and help prevent you from getting sick. And it's hard to say exactly which is best, so I just take a mix. I like to. And cordyceps is also great; is a good energy booster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's like such a whole conversation. But Amanita muscaria has been coming up a lot lately, and I didn't I tried it as just like kind of one of these things that people do. So Amanita muscaria, for anybody listening, is like this big red mushroom with white dots on it. I can almost guarantee you've seen it at the very least as like the Mario mushroom or something like that, or the Santa Claus mushroom. And there's all this lore about its use in like Siberia, and like these Siberian shamans like finding it in the woods and bringing it to people, and like that is like the origin of the story of Christmas. And it's so interesting. But then when people go and attempt to like have an Amanita muscaria experience with like the active compound muscimol, they usually just feel kind of drunk, get really tired, and don't feel very good about it. I had a similar experience myself. I heard Hamilton Morris talking about it. He said he took an extract of Amanita muscaria, and it was like the most psychedelic thing ever. So there is potential that maybe there's some sort of ancient extraction process that we've missed. You're supposed to drink like the urine of a reindeer that was eating it, etc. Like there's some nuances here. Anyway, but the real point is that people have been microdosing with it for anxiety and having like amazing experiences, like really helping them just come down from their anxiety or to sleep better at night. And so I've just been hearing a lot of reports, and we actually have a supplemental video from this woman. Her YouTube page is Amanita Dreamer. And yeah, she's been talking about it a lot. So we got her to do a supplemental video for the microdosing movement, and just really excited to learn more about that, because if there's a second magic mushroom that's like really helping people as well, like definitely want to know about that.
Oh yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. And the whole fungal kingdom is just so rich. And even just like penicillin, right? Something that's like saved so many millions of lives. That's fungal. It's like a mold. It's just like a really not interesting mold. And somebody realized, oh, the antibiotic potential of this is immense. And they created a medicine that's still used today. It's been used for hundreds of years.
Yeah. I mean, it's magic to be like cliche about it, but that's why it has the name. Like, it's just all mushrooms are just amazing.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, I've heard some talk about where you're getting the extract, or the where you're getting the mushroom microdose supplement, like let me rephrase that a little bit. I guess what I'm trying to say is I've heard some things about like the mycelium is better for you than the fruit bodies, or the fruit bodies are better than the mycelium, or even some people saying like, well, you better make sure you get it from caps or stems, or so what's your take on this?
So I mean, I think that you're talking about all medicinal mushrooms in general, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. It's like a pretty nuanced discussion, but I do want to first say that with psilocybin, actually one of the most interesting things on psilocybin, actually I keep saying most interesting, I'm just kind of a curious person.
That's the new title for the episode, the most interesting thing about psilocybin. 10.
Thank you. No, I love this though, is that because I teach people how to cultivate mushrooms, and it seems that there's actually a relatively similar level of psilocybin in the mycelium as there is in the fruiting body, in the mushroom itself. And, luckily I have access to some friends that are running a lab here in Oakland and doing some testing. And they've gotten some promising results from the mycelium. And if it's possible for people to just grow the mycelium, that makes it so much more accessible, than it is currently. And I'm just really curious, like, if that might be a future that people are not even as concerned about growing the mushroom itself. And there's like hundreds of species of psilocybin containing mushrooms that we can cultivate the mycelium, but not the mushroom. And that means that there might be the potential for like a much richer variety of psilocybin mushroom experiences, because they all have these different profiles, because these are actually different species, not just different strains of one species. Like cannabis, all of the weed that you've ever smoked is one species, cannabis sativa, but tons of different strains. And it's similar with cubensis, psilocybe cubensis, because all these different strains. But with mushrooms, there's actually the potential that there's tons of different species. So who knows what the future holds. when it comes back to mushrooms, I think a lot of the reason for this debate, there's a couple of things that I'm like super aware of. One is that a lot of people don't really trust Paul Stamets because he's a businessman and he's like, his company uses mostly the mycelium, and he's saying, no, the mycelium is great. Like it's the best thing ever. So it's almost like he's like saying it's better than using the mushroom in some cases, I think. And so I think that has just really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So there's a lot of like lashback. I've just heard it come up so much. And
yeah,
then,
I don't trust him because he listens to dubstep in his lab, but you know.
Oh, really? You don't say.
Like that was in Fantastic Fungi. He's like, yeah, we put this music on in the lab, and it was like just really intense. Like, yeah.
You know, but obviously he's done a lot of great things. Anyway, you know, the other thing is that a lot of people want to rip on it because, oh, well, the mycelium is grown on brown rice. You know, so actually most of the biomass of what you're purchasing is brown rice.
Right.
And it's just the mycelium is grown on that versus when you have, you know, when you have a mushroom, a fruiting body, that is 100% mycelium. It's 100% mushroom, you know, because basically a mushroom is mycelium. It's condensed from a hyphal knot, and then it grows, expands, and then it, you know, creates the spore creating body, whether that, you know, there's a few different kinds, but so I think that the argument is that, yeah, one is better than the other. And from what I've really looked into and read, and, you know, I've talked to this guy, Robert Rogers, who wrote this awesome book, The Fungal Pharmacy. And, you know, it seems more that the issue here is just that they're different and that people want to kind of fight for what they do because a lot of people have businesses that depend on their information being the best. And so, you know, that's kind of how a lot of capitalism works, right? Hey, this is what I do, so it's the best. And I think that as we move forward, we'll hopefully see more and more studies coming out with like, you know, good information. But for now, what it seems is like, yeah, the mycelium and the fruiting body are different. With certain species, it's more pronounced than others. Like lion's mane is a great example because in the tests that they do have, it seems that the fruiting body and the mycelium are almost the same from what I read. You know, who knows, maybe there'll be more different studies that I'm unaware of, but from what I looked at, they're basically the same. Now, is it an issue that it's grown on brown rice? Like, is it digesting the brown rice and getting its enzymes up in there? And is that actually a benefit? Like Paul Stamets says, you know, it's really hard to know all the nuances of it because it's a broad conversation.
Yeah.
But I think that some of the factors that are certainly true is that, you know, it's hard to say for sure. And that there's definitely, it seems like a price difference for products that are mycelium based versus fruiting body based. And I think that it's best if people take some mushroom product because it just seems like across the board, healthier immune systems and things like that are the outcome of using some sort of mushroom based supplement. So again, that's like from research that I read online and my own personal anecdotes, but it's a strange world we live in, Mike. You know, it's like hard to know what's true. I've read, it's like the more you read, the more you don't understand. And I almost envy the people that just don't know anything about it and they just believe what somebody says because they're going to get the benefit. You know, they're going to get some benefit. But then there's a lot of other problems too. Like, okay, well, you know, lion's mane has been shown that, you know, it's the aerosines, the element that like really helps like with the nerve growth, and that is really subject to oxidation. I don't know if it's technically oxidation, but basically when it's exposed to air and light and being dried out, a lot of it is degraded immediately. So when you're purchasing a product, like, is it a dried, powdered version of lion's mane? Well, guess what? That makes a big difference, you know, in what you're purchasing versus maybe something that has, you know, been dried out as a whole and not powdered and then maybe made into a tincture, something like that. I think we're going to learn a lot more about these nuances in the future because obviously there's a lot of money dependent on the outcomes of these experiments. So I'm looking forward to more and more of that information as we become a more mycophilic society as opposed to a mycophobic society.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, yeah, and I love that what you're doing with the group, with the microdosing movement. It's really like, look, there's going to be also like a level of experimentation here. So you're getting in and you're able to sort of seeing, the people that are going to be involved with this are going to be able to see what works for them, what works for other people, and get some expert feedback and advice and some help, and when information does come out, as you were saying, there is sort of this tendency to sort of, nudge it in the direction that like this big company with this money behind it is going to benefit from. But if you have people that are in the microdosing movement who've gone through the process and are being sort of, these psychonauts to a certain extent with themselves and experimenting, well, they're going to have the evidence that they need, and, not necessarily be swayed by maybe a polished marketing presentation for some bigger company that's saying, no, this is the way to do it. Because you already know, hey, I tried it and I got together with 30 people who also tried it, and we all got together and saw what worked, what didn't work, what we're feeling, what we're not feeling, and how that's working for us. And to me, and for my money, being your own alchemist is like the best thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah. And we haven't even gotten into, it could be its whole own podcast, but, I call my workshops generally something to the degree of like cultivating a relationship with sacred mushrooms. And I think that relational element that you're talking about, being your own alchemist, is huge. Talking about connections, acting like psilocybin in the brain, right? Opening up connections. It's all relationships. And I think that what you're mentioning here is really like the best thing that we can do to like really prevent corporate erosion over the things that we love and care about, is to maintain strong communities at the core. And it's going to take people like us, like you and me, people that are holding platforms and holding bigger spaces, to make sure that there's room for those conversations, regardless of how much or how little we're getting paid. At the end of the day, like, not making much money running this organization. And I'm not afraid to, like, if we at some point do have the opportunity to make some money, but just to make sure that our values come first, and to make sure that we're really making decisions that benefit our community. That's one of the reasons that we are moving towards a membership model. We just switched all of our integration support groups to being totally free. And we're really hoping that people will believe in the work that we're doing, and that they want to show up and, do their own little part of psychedelic community service, and just really, be a part of that community model that, it relies on voices of people. It doesn't hide evidence that doesn't support the growth of our industry. We really want to support good information. We want to support community, and we really want to support new relationships and connections and build bridges so that we can all kind of be a part of this bigger, more essential movement, which, just to put it, frankly, is just like trying to help, trying to heal, trying to feel better, or like look at the state of the world and be like, it's not up to snuff. What can we do about this?
Yeah. And there's like, there's like a currency in that, it's like when I was taught cultivation, I was so excited to learn. And beyond that, I was even more excited to start sharing what I've learned and teaching other people. And by teaching other people, I was learning more myself. Mm-hmm. And, once you start to get involved and really connected with the whole process and with a community, with a real community, there's a different energetic frequency, not to get all woo, but there's like a different energetic frequency that happens there, because there's so much more there's so much more possibility that happens when people are in it, when they're inspired, when they feel connected, when they feel like they have support, and when you voluntarily like want to, because we live in this world where you could pretty much just live in your house, just be isolated, disconnected from everything, and just order whatever you need online, and it just comes to your door. But when you're a part of the process, you're really changing sort of the like value and incentive and even like, energetic monetary exchange, because now all of a sudden, hey, you're growing lion's mane, somebody else is growing reishi, someone else is, making microdose capsules or something. And you're like, hey, great. Like we can all combine resources and information, and then teach new people who want to come in. And that, like, it's just this, you know what I mean? It's like this thing that builds on itself, and it really creates this whole new sort of economy that's built around this thing. So,
and isn't there some awesome project in Denver that's like basically like a mycology project? I think it's called Denver Mycology, maybe, or something like that. That they have like a myco cooperative. People are coming to learn and grow together.
So the organization that I'm a part of is called the Denver Mushroom Cooperative, and we just secured a space for lab space for people to come, for the community to come and to learn how to grow medicinal mushrooms and learn cultivation. So that'll be active like more towards the new year, but it's a huge space, and we have like massive flow hoods and laboratory equipment for people to come and learn and do little, take home things, and have like a space where they can hold meetings and there's another organization I'm vaguely like familiar with, but there's all these, the point of the cooperative is to be that, to be a cooperative, to be a place where that energy is constantly being transferred in like a non-hierarchical way and more of a circular, horizontal way. And just kind of being like a beacon where people can come and learn and grow and expand. And then new ideas, who knows what will be birthed out of that. But we believe, like you said, we have faith. It's the same kind of thing. And like we have this network here, and there's another one here, and then what you guys are doing there. So it's like, it's spreading in all these areas where it's able to spread. And then we're just going to, on top of that, have more people engaged, more people passionate, inspired, and connected, and more information, more, research, right, to look to.
Yeah, man. I mean, what's really interesting is that like each of us can do our part to kind of create these different models for what can work as a community supported psychedelic movement, and like, for us, we're really working on this integration side of things, really making sure that there is the opportunity for people that just had a crazy psychedelic experience, or just a really meaningful one, or just something, maybe it was, whatever it was, any kind of psychedelic experience. Maybe they met an entity, or they had to face their PTSD, or, it's a broad, as there's a lot of things that could happen.
Oh yeah.
That they have a place to go after that they have people to talk to, or a place to go before that, people to get prepared with, people to talk about it with, really want to build that. And then like these models, for like the mycology access models, sure, there's always the, let's just go the, maybe the future holds a lot of like a psychedelic, was it a dispensary? Okay, sure. But that's probably the least interesting model I could think of, like let's do something way more radical and empowering for the community, which is like, getting citizen scientists to like actually create their own medicine as a collective, and, just make it accessible. And when it comes to integration, I think that those kinds of things are a huge part of it too, right? Like, hey, the place that I went to learn how to cultivate my own medicine healed me. Like just going there, just meeting other cool people doing the same thing, like et cetera, people that accepted me, wanted me to help because we have this shared mission, the shared vision. And I think that so many of us, myself at times included, especially where I was coming from, just felt like so aimless and disconnected from anything meaningful, And I think that like we're really creating opportunities to feel like they're a part for people. Myself, I mean, I'm really creating this opportunity for myself, right? I love reflecting in a selfish lens to be like, like I really want this opportunity to feel like I'm doing meaningful work, and I really want to help create the opportunity for other people to feel like they're doing meaningful work. And I think that that's really what this quote unquote community service is all about, is creating just like a little bit more than we need, so the next person can like move in and fill in and be a part of growing the movement themselves.
Yeah. I've heard people talk about, we want to avoid some of the mistakes that were made in cannabis legalization. Have you heard similar kinds of, or have
God, it's nonstop.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a great thing to say, I think.
Yeah. So what are some of the, I mean, like, cause I know, here in Denver that there's like sort of, bigger dispensaries that have taken over, and sort of less like, mom and pop shops or cooperative kind of experiences. And so for me, in my mind, with Denver Mushroom Co-op and with the microdosing movement, San Francisco Psychedelic Society, and all the other great places that are sort of getting people in on the ground level and building that community connection, offering integration and learning, it kind of is able to kind of get in and establish something that's new and different before maybe big money bag corporate places can start to come in. Is that,
Yeah.
do you think that's accurate, or what do you think about that?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. It's a complicated thing, right? Because cannabis and psychedelics are not really the same thing.
Right.
They're pretty different, but at the same time, they could be similar. Like, I think cannabis could be used as more of it could benefit from that community side of it. That's like, look, we're using this, for collective healing. Here's classes on how to best use cannabis, like for this purpose or this purpose or this purpose. Not really seeing that. That being said, I think that what happened was there was a really strong ethos around cannabis and community, before all the changes. Maybe it was before it even got really big. I don't know. I wasn't really here, but I know 10 years ago, or maybe it was even longer, I guess probably even longer. But, I know some people that were in San Francisco during the AIDS epidemic, AIDS crisis. That was obviously a long time ago, but relatively speaking, and that was huge. It was huge. The first dispensaries were places for people to find a community of healing, find a place that they could get relief and be around people. And the people that were running those dispensaries were risking their lives to do that work. They're risking their livelihood, putting it all on the line, saying I believe in this. And I think it's those people that pave the way for these movements, people that do it for the right reason. And then we end up in a position where people with the right money show up and say, hey, it's a great opportunity to invest. And the mainstream loves that, right? It's oh my God, this is going to be great for the economy. We're going to have more jabs, whatever, man,
Right.
This is about connection and relationships. So if by investing and creating these jobs or whatever, as if I don't know what a job is. It's kind of true. Jobs or whatever. It's you're taking away so much of the substance because you're not willing to take any risk, which was initially what made those people what made that community so rich in the first place, was that people were saying, no, we need a place to talk about this. That's why we exist.
Right.
We needed a place to talk about psychedelics. We needed friends that we could discuss our depth experiences about. And, it's just hard in a world of taboo to do that. And it will be for a while longer. But I think that what can, really set us apart is to not let go of that. And I don't think that psychedelics easily lend themselves to that, to be integration isn't important. Just trip really hard and then go to work the next day. No hangover, It's I don't think that people are going to move in that direction as a society, but maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's just hopeful. Maybe that's naive. But I think that, maintaining a place that really is about the further healing experience, right? Because integration exists as a conversation in psychedelics because the psychedelic experience itself, while it may be healing, it's temporary. It really shows you the light. And I think a lot of people can confuse that for the healing, but it's really the personal healing comes in relationship to the seeing the light, not because you saw the light. It's really gives you the opportunity to do the work to become a better person. I really like to look at a bag of mushrooms or doing mushrooms, getting a yoga mat. Yeah, you might have a yoga mat, but you have to do yoga, and you have to do the work of growing, of being a better person, of being the person you saw you could be,
Oh man,
helping create the world.
It's so funny. Yeah, totally. I had a moment this morning where I stared at my yoga mat that was rolled up in the corner, and I was like, all right, well, probably not going to get to it right now, but I see you there. And then similarly, I had this thought where I was looking at my bookshelf and I'm like, man, I really need to crack into some of these because I just have them here. Like I haven't opened like 6 of these books that I want to look at. So it's like you get the key, you open the door, and it requires participation. Mushrooms are like it's like getting a new friend. It's like, hey, like this is a participatory experience. This is a symbiotic like relationship here. There's a give and take, and if that happens, then you have a fruitful relationship. You have a really deep relationship, and then there's magic that comes from that.
And that just brings us right back to the concern about the magic pill or the ego inflation pitfall that a lot of people can have with psychedelics, is to think that the psychedelic experience is the healing.
Right.
And it's not. It's like an opportunity to rewire your brain, but it actually takes that work of ingraining the new pathways, not just questioning the old ones, but actually ingraining the new pathways is like the hard part. And that's Yeah.
So we're probably going to wrap in a few, but what I want to get to is actually those pathways, like the healing that can occur, or the changes that can occur in oneself from microdosing. I was wondering maybe if we could talk a little bit about that, because it is this it's a process, and that's why the microdosing movement that you've put together is over the course of 6 weeks, and it's really it's a process, right? So. What kind of things can unfold from microdosing for a prolonged period of time?
Oh man, there's just so many things that people have reported. It's really incredible. I'll just speak first from my own experience. I think I really started taking microdosing when I was living in my truck. I really didn't know what I was going to do next. I was in Oakland. I was living in the North Bay. The house I was living in got sold. Didn't really know a lot of people. So I just took my truck, moved to Oakland, and was just like kind of sleeping in the back of it for like a month.
Truck road thing.
Yeah, but not like really like road tripping, just kind of like staying there, looking, trying to build the connections I had and just really get grounded. And it was in that time that microdosing helped me so much, because it was like winter, it was raining, there was like water getting into the truck, and it was just bad. It was like really just objectively a bad situation. But like, I like to say that optimism is a strategy, and like optimism is like a survival strategy. Because I just think that that's the most realistic way to look at it. Like, yeah, I like to be happy. Like, I like to feel good. I like to be optimistic. And I think it's important that, you're not constantly optimistic, because there's certain places where that can hurt you. But at large, it's like a strategy to believe that things are going to be better, or things that are going to be okay. Like it's like my life is like actively better when I am telling myself that, whether or not it's true. Like that's not really important, However, it seems that the more I can access optimism, the better my life does get in the long run. And yeah, microdosing really helped me in those few months there, between having absolutely, it was like, it wasn't just that, it was like my girlfriend broke up with me. I didn't have a place to live. And I think I had like no money also. So it was just this like kind of all at once kind of moment. And while, my heart says like, yeah, like it's going to be okay, we're going to get through this. Every day says like, asks me, are you going to get through this, kid? And I think the microdosing in that time was just enough to like offset the cynical nature of myself, the like self-destructive pattern to be like, this is bad. This is really bad. You have to get, what I mean? It's just like, and, by the end of that month, I like met some incredible people, taught a workshop, like got connected, had a place to work, and people showed up for me. I made new connections, became part of the Psychedelic Society, etc. It was extensive what came of that moment, but it really took holding on, and, so that's my story, how I started microdosing. And I've heard a lot of similar things, people in relatively desperate places or people in good places that, wanted to improve it. Also, interestingly, parents are some of these I don't want to say parents are just generally desperate, but like parents are quite often overwhelmed.
Right.
And it seems that there's a part of life that will, like, you know, especially in this world that we're living in, you know, kind of the productivity focused. It's like, if you have room to take on more, that's when you should take on more. And we're always like constantly at the edge of our comfort as a society. And I think microdosing can really help us like address that in a way that's like, oh, this wave isn't going to crush me. Like, it's an opportunity to surf. You know, I could be surfing this wave, and like, I can do all this work, but how do I feel about doing all this work? And that's important, you know? And
yeah. I love what you said about, you know, how you weren't going to those places of cynicism or like, you know, as much, because that's what it was like for me about like this time last year. I started a regimen of microdosing psilocybin, and, you know, I was in kind of a bad place. I was in like a difficult and challenging space, and I had an active meditation, breathwork practice. I was going to the gym. But those things alone, it was still hard for me to hold on, because I would still give into the, oh my God, this is so challenging. This is so hard. Like, but when I started microdosing, it was like just a soft pillow to kind of rest on a little bit. It took some of those negative inclinations and just sort of, you know, disintegrated them a little bit or dispersed them a little bit. And I was able to really function at the level that I wanted to function at and keep going through those difficult times. Which is, I mean, such a huge benefit. Changed everything for me.
Yeah, I know you got to go, but this is actually, I really want to make a point about this. You know, this is actually where I ended up. I was microdosing like 2 to 3 times a day, like kind of just, I had made this paste. I was calling it mushroom butter. And I just like take a little, you know, it's like a paste of like honey and medicinal mushrooms and psilocybin and cubensis, you know, powdered and mixed together. And I was just like dipping into it like throughout the day, kind of, for a couple months at one point. And it was for exactly that reason, for exactly the reason that, oh, it's just like a little pillow. And I found that I was pushing myself so far outside my comfort zone that I was really starting to fall apart. And I do want to caution people about that. Like, you can abuse anything, and that these microdosing isn't immune to that either, you know? And it wasn't hard for me to stop once I realized that I was doing that. But I did end up in that cycle. So I just want to say that that's possible as well. So, you know, to ask you a question, maybe you don't have an answer, it's fine. But did that experience that you have like guide you to something else that was going on? Did it help you address part of yourself that maybe was otherwise unchecked? And did you grow through that experience with microdosing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it kept me on course for the things, you know, so often I'll have things that I want to be doing, and then things that I'm capable of doing, and then things that I tend to like push myself to do that I'm not capable of doing. And so through that microdosing experience for like 3 months around this time last year, starting in the fall, more like around like October, it like gave me a little bit of just, you know, trust the process, stay on course, don't overwhelm yourself. So I started very low, and worked a little bit higher, but not too much higher. And yeah, I've had some negative experiences, but not with this particular case. I felt like I'd done it the right way. And I could only imagine, like, you know, that it would have been so much better too, to have a support system like what you've created with the microdosing movement. So I definitely urge people. And, you know, the cool thing about this is that you've gone there, Seth. Like, you've been to like the challenging places. You've been to the places of like, you know, you've trialed and errored yourself. So, you know, like the pitfalls, the dark sides, the misconceptions. You've experienced it. You've been through it. And I think that's so valuable to have somebody who's been there and been on the positive and negative side of things to now have this microdosing movement where people can be a part of something where they're really getting a full comprehensive overview of like what this is, and like the whole lay of the land and the territory and the ups and downs and it all. So,
Thank you, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that like definitely, with my experience, it could have been also enhanced by having a community, and especially a community that is dedicated to, this unfolding process over the course of 6 weeks. So, man, I mean, I don't know. It's like we could go on for hours. Unfortunately,
I really feel like that. Yeah, let's just.
Unfortunately, I do have to go, but you're welcome to come on the show anytime. I'm down to chat about anything, and so yeah, I guess like I definitely think that this is a really cool thing, and so I put it in like all the links that for the microdosing movement are in like my social media and stuff. I've posted about it. For anybody out there that is thinking of experimenting with microdosing, or maybe is currently experimenting with microdosing, go check it out. I have the links up there. Tell them where else they could go, and just what else they should know about this coming up on Sunday, December 13th.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you so much. We just launched a new website. It's even as I speak, it's like in the throes of launching. So I think, by the time this is out there, it should be up for sure. But yeah, Psychedelic Society, sf.org. You can go there, find out about the many other events that we're hosting. Like really, we have like 10 integration. We have different circles for whether it's addiction recovery. We have a women's group. We have a just standard integration circle. We have, we're going to have the microdosing group starting up pretty soon. We have a dream circle, a BIPOC group. Like we're really trying to hit the different niches and weave together a broad community. Additionally, we just are launching the membership opportunity, so people can kind of get involved, go a little bit deeper with us. That offering is going to gain richness on a constant basis. And, it's the end of the year. So if you're kind of wondering if you should pay taxes this year, I think no. I think you should take your tax money, the things you have to pay, and I think you should donate it to your community service. Do some community service in the psychedelic world and donate to us. We're a 501c3, tax deductible. So, I think that we're cooler than taxes, at least. And, so that's an opportunity. You can always give us a donation, become a member. And we're really trying to build something rich here that is a huge offering for anybody entering the space. We're not providing access to substances, but we'll teach you how to grow your own mushrooms, and we'll get you connected with other people that can really help us make sense of this crazy world that we're living in right now. Of course, everything's online right now because, we've had to make that switch with COVID, but it's given us a great opportunity to have a global reach. And while we will maintain that as soon as possible, we're going to be getting our bits and pieces together and creating a in-person community center, hopefully with a lab space like you were talking about in Denver, Mike, and a place to, do our small groups and things like that, as well as, who knows, maybe a little cafe and a living room. We really just want to give a place for the needs of this broader community to take root. And while we're in a place with just, there's basically a huge lighthouse that everybody's spending millions of dollars on, this lighthouse that just broadcasts hope, psychedelic hope. And that's through the research that's going on. And there's not a lot of money going to the support for those, the hungry masses, just everybody that wants to be a part of this movement. There's not a lot happening for them. So that's what we're trying to show up and just make sure that everybody has a place. We have a bottom line in our community to just get involved. Nobody's going to get left behind if they don't want to. So we just trying to get the word out about it and looking for you to come show up. So thanks for listening. Thanks a lot for having me, Mike. It is a blessing to do this work and really to have, people like you to just chat with and help get the word out, man. Thank you so much for your service. And yeah, thank you everybody listening too.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. And I think you guys, what you're building with San Francisco Psychedelic Society, it's happening. Like I see it and I feel it. And the support that you gave to the decriminalization initiative, Decriminalized Nature, and just all the wonderful things that you guys are doing. So we talked a lot about the microdosing movement, and that's coming up on December 13th. But really, go check out everything that the San Francisco Psychedelic Society is offering, because there's a lot of spaces out there. But it's really about the character character of the people, the quality of what they're bringing to the table. And I can't vouch for, Seth and Danielle and everybody over at San Francisco Psychedelic Society enough. I think it's wonderful what they're building, and the heart and the intention and the community that you guys are building out there. I can feel it. And I love to be a part of it as well, and it's really cool because they're for their microdosing movement. Seth, you guys are doing a sliding scale as well, and so you're trying to really get everybody involved. And there's a limited amount of scholarship tickets available. So thank you so much, Seth, for everything that you do, for being here today, and all the links that you guys will need will be in the show notes description. And that's it. Mikeadelic, Microdose, San Francisco Psychedelic Society, Seth Rodose. We're out.
And we out. All right, man. Much love.
Peace, everyone. All right. Well, that's the show. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. If you want to get involved in this microdosing movement, hurry up and act now and click on the link in the show description. Go to my link tree on social media if you want to check it out there. Whatever is easiest for you. I got that link right in the show description. Should appear right on your podcast player. And get a spot. The microdosing movement is going to be an awesome, everything that you want to know about microdosing, get you started in the world of microdosing, get you started in the world of psychedelics, so check that out. It's going to be really epic. And big shout out to SHEATH Underwear. Love SHEATH Underwear. They're so comfortable. I love wearing them. Everybody that I've recommended it to loves wearing them. You get 20% off if you go to sheathunderwear.com and enter the promo code mikeadelic at checkout. Big shout out to all my patrons, all my new patrons. I love you guys. Love you really so much. Thank you so much for the support on Patreon. If you want to consider being a Patreon member, go to patreon.com/MikeBrank and get access to bonus content and community group Zoom calls and Discord chat and all that fun stuff. Also, big shout out to everybody that leaves 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. It helps the pod tremendously. So thank you from the bottom of my heart from everybody that reaches out to tell me how awesome the show is and how much they're loving it. And spread the love, share what you like, and really much love to all of you out there. Peace.